Jaden, ready for the news. So I think we should start with the story that broke by Ken Klippenstein over on Blue Sky, the Defense Intelligence Agency memo that went out talking about targeting DEI programs. Basically, they're pausing certain events throughout the Defense Intelligence Agency, and what they celebrate and recognize, they're being removed off the calendar. I've had multiple different people reach out to me and tell me that they work for federal agencies, and that's what's happening. But they're going to pause recognition of Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, Black History Month, Women's History Month, Holocaust Remembrance Day, Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month, Pride, Juneteenth, Women's Equality Day, National Hispanic Heritage Month, National Disability Employment Awareness Month, National American Indian Heritage Month. And even worse, at the end of this, if that's not bad enough, at the end, it said DIA will also pause agency resource groups, affinity groups, and employee network groups effective immediately until further notice. So they're trying to disconnect employees' ability to communicate. So that they can't mount any sort of resistance or whatever. I'm sure these will just move into the back channels, but it's funny they said they weren't going to enforce Project 2025 because this is central, getting rid of DEI. Central. And basically, let's be real about what this is. This is the same people that, like throughout history in America, they're upset that slavery's ended, and then they're upset that black people have rights, and they're upset about they just try and move us backwards. It's the same exact people. Like, it's not going to be the Democrats using the hose during, the civil rights movement. It would be them. It would be these people, these Republican crazy Heritage Foundation people that have somehow equated everything wrong that happens in America to being inclusion. This is like the new version of white flight. Just get rid of anything that scares us. I am not scared by diversity. I welcome it. It's pretty great. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, this is part and parcel with the overarching belief of replacement theory, which has become quite prominent over the last 10 years. The idea that the numbers of the white race are dwindling and being replaced by minority groups in positions of power, in positions of wealth, in positions of policy decisions. And as a result, this initiative of rolling back DEI hiring and diversity initiatives and recognition thereof is exactly that, is reversing course, is making sure that what they deem as merit-based really just means white-based, really means that there's not going to be equity for black people, for Hispanics, for Asian people, for women and the disabled. Simply those who are able-bodied, who are white, and who share a central ideology. Simply put, this is nationalism full
Yeah.
through. This is
Well, this
nationalism
is white. This
full
is white
straight through.
nationalism.
Yes, white
Just
nationalism.
yeah. Um, this is really, over time, like it was something that Lee Atwater said, right? When they talked about the Southern strategy, you used to just be able to say the N word and get elected. You can't do that anymore. Now you have to use coded language, right? Force busing, you know, equity, whatever the language may be. You have to use subtle language, right? Coded language, dog whistles. And that's what this has become. Like, anti DEI is a dog whistle. It's a dog whistle to people's inherent want to protect whiteness in America. And now we have a bunch of people that are in power that are going to do exactly that. Now, I think it's going to be a bit interesting when they get to Republican courts, and it's very clearly like, ooh, this is definitely discriminatory, whatever is happening or whatever they're doing. And a lot of these things were meant to prevent that. But in an economy where your livelihood is already threatened because of rising prices, you have people that are trying to protect their own interest at the expense of other people's races, because it's incredibly easy for someone to just go, I'm not racist, I just don't support DEI. And that's what we're watching happen in America right now.
And it's important that you mentioned class in that equation there, because this is the wealthiest cabinet that we've ever seen in history. There's something like a dozen or so, more than a dozen billionaires. This is straight out of the playbook of this class struggle, is using issues like race, is using issues like gender as a key distraction from the fact that wages have declined, from the fact that unions have crippled. Just earlier today or yesterday, Trump ousted the general counsel of the National Labor Relations Board, meaning rolling back workers' progress, workers' rights, the rights to form a union. But the conversation is instead on race, is instead on DEI, is instead on trans people and gender and what have you, to move away from the overarching problem, which is wealth disparity in America.
Yes. Sorry, someone joined. Rena, can you check the chat really quick? The other one. Yeah, they're. Yeah, this is. I mean, 8 days in, and it's already. To be fair, though, I want to be honest. Like, I'm not. I thought it was gonna. I thought they were gonna be. It's not that I don't think the things they're doing are bad. I definitely do that. I think the way in which they were going to implement it were going to be more sound. So, sorry. Go
It looks like we have somebody here.
Yeah. Can you stop inviting people? Right. Okay. Sorry. Go
There
ahead.
we go. Also in the news today, there were three Puerto Rican people in Milwaukee who had been detained by ICE, released after they had shown their IDs. This is not the first of which this has happened or will happen in the course of this next wave of deportations and arraigning people. We're going to start seeing and are seeing now citizens being arrested, citizens potentially being deported, and that is the decline that we're now seeing here. There's no excuse for this. This is profiling. This is racial profiling. This is going to lead to numerous innocent and citizen people being detained and arrested. Not to say that any undocumented person deserves the same thing, but the fact that this is now happening to U.S.
Right.
citizens shows the flaw in this exact policy.
Yeah. So, I've talked about this before. I'll just reiterate it for people. There is several different types of criminal profiling when it comes to like your traditional police stops, right? There's economic, which is illegal. You can't economically profile someone, say, well, they're poor, they must be doing something wrong. You can't take someone's race, right, and be like, oh, well, they're doing something wrong because of the race. That's racial profiling. And the only one that you can do is what's called behavioral profiling. And there might be some other ones that are used like in certain circumstances, but those are the main ones. And the behavioral side of profiling is like someone's doing something suspicious, right? Unrelated to their skin color or their economic status. Something they're doing is drawing, is illustrating there might be a problem, right? And then you would have to articulate through a standard for a stop, which is called reasonable suspicion, a articulatable suspicion that someone is committing a crime. The problem in this instance is the only way that you can determine whether or not someone is undocumented is by racial profiling, right? Because you can't use behavioral profiling for it. What are you going to look at someone? If you were to look at someone at a grocery store, how are you going to know that they're undocumented? How could
Trump
you
said
possibly
recently
know?
you can tell who's undocumented or who's illegal based on how they look. I don't know how
Right.
that is anything
Which is,
but profiling.
he also said let them use common sense. So that's the
Right.
thing, is that they're using racial profiling and they're catching up U.S. citizens, and we're going to field a lot of lawsuits as a result of it. It may be that the courts even like issue injunctions, like, no, you're going to stop. Like, you guys are clearly racially profiling people. We'll have to see how the court reacts, but yes, I think the concerning part is if this makes it up to the Supreme Court, which it almost certainly will, unless they're too scared to take it. I could definitely see them finding some bizarro half-baked workaround so that they could allow cops to do this. They have in the past. So that's kind of what we're up against. But basically, they're going out to stores and just stopping everyone. And I'm not a lawyer to go to school for criminal justice, but if you have friends or family or anything like that, tell them to do one very simple thing if they're scared. Shut the fuck up. Ask for a lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
Am I being
And
detained?
in
No. Okay, leave. Am I being detained? They'll do this thing where they don't answer. Just be obnoxious. Be respectful but obnoxious.
mm-hmm.
Am I detained or am I free to go? If that's fine and all, am I detained or am I free to go? Then ask
Yes,
for a lawyer
ask
if you're
for a
detained.
warrant. Reserve your rights
You
to
also,
not be
you
searched.
have to invoke. You have to invoke your right to remain silent. You have to, like, in some way state it, right? if it's uh, whatever language you speak, if it's in writing, whatever. Unfortunately, there was a Supreme Court case a while ago where some guy decided to sit in the interrogation room and didn't say anything, and they just kept asking him. Right? It used to be that they would ask you, and then they'd be like, "Okay, well, after a certain point, it doesn't look like he wants to talk. We'll presume it." Now, no, I don't. I don't know if that's changed, but that was a Scalia decision. But yes, stop talking to the police. Ask for a lawyer. Be respectful. Would you do something wrong? Nope. I just don't trust you. Or no, I don't. I just want to speak to a lawyer. That's all you gotta say. What else we got in the news today, Jaden?
Well, in keeping with sidestepping the Constitution and deporting legal citizens and residents, Donald Trump plans to sign an executive order to cancel student visas and deport resident aliens who participated in pro Palestinian protests. This doesn't even have to do with whether or not there was a crime that was committed during the protest, whether or not some illegal activity or looting or what have you, trespassing occurred. Just the fact that if any undocumented, or rather documented person under a student visa participated in this protest, they'll be subject to deportation. That not only is illegal and unconstitutional, but for what reason? Are we against the First Amendment now? Are we against the right
Yeah,
to assembly
I thought he
and
loved the
protest?
First Amendment, right? That's all they were doing on
Yeah.
January 6th was their First Amendment, right? Yeah. And it's a weird juxtaposition when you're like trying to defend Israel, but also Elon Musk didn't do anything. He didn't, nobody, you know what I mean? Nobody, nobody did anything there. So this is a weird thing. This is very clearly just a power grab. I don't know how all this stuff is going to go in the courts. He's going to attempt to undermine it. We'll have to see. Um, you know, okay. This is my thoughts on sort of currently. I'll just give you a little recap on my thoughts of the day. Donald Trump is setting himself up to have the single most incompetent administration in American history. I don't know how really bad things are not going to happen, and I don't know how they're not going to be amplified by incompetent people in power. When I think about U.S. safety and protection from terrorist attacks, Pete Hegseth is going to fail. The only way something bad doesn't happen in this country is someone else happens to put up with the shit and find it, or and they're like internally they're golden, or B, um, one just doesn't happen. And then I think about RFK and what's going on with the bird flu. And I think about, Tulsi Gabbard and what's going on with Russian disinformation.
And
They're
Cash
putting
Patel.
incompetent people that view America and what's beneficial for America in literally like opposite day terms. I don't see, and Cash Patel, even Pam Bondi, I don't see a way in which when bad things happen, they're not really fucking bad. You know what I mean?
And the
If
question
that
is,
makes
will they
sense.
be reprimanded? Will they be fired? Will they be impeached or ousted or what have you? Will they resign? Or will they continue to sit on their
No.
hands and push the blame
Mega
elsewhere?
mega DEI hires are fine. And I just want to point out, DEI hire does not mean that the person's unqualified. They always point this out. They're unqualified.
hmm
This doesn't mean inherently that they're unqualified. It means they're qualified. You can't be. They're just handing it out to anyone. No, they're qualified people. Um,
And two
sorry.
more stories here to touch up on. Trump
Mm-hmm.
is directing the opening of Guantanamo Bay to hold at least 30,000 migrants. Apparently, there's a golf course relative to the Guantanamo detention center. He's planning on opening that up and housing them there. Whether or not he'll be able to do that, whether or not citizens will be caught in that crossfire and then held illegally and deported is to be determined. But that many people in that span of time does not spell very good results.
Yeah. Yeah. I did want to read
Certainly
one
short
good.
staffed.
Exactly. I did want to read one good piece of news today. Actually, funny.
hmm
If that's all right. At the end of this. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah. The
Menendez was
Guantanamo Bay
sentenced to
thing.
11 years.
The Guantanamo Bay thing. Okay. Did we not learn our lesson?
Nope. No, we did
Like,
not.
did we not? Did we not learn
No.
our lesson from this? Or I don't. we've had some experience with that particular bay,
Mm-hmm.
and it hasn't been good. And also, Trump has had his own attempt at, like, using cages, and it didn't turn out good. So now they're going to spend an insane amount of money moving migrants to Guantanamo Bay.
And
Why?
America's
What's the?
history of internment camps of ethnic minorities isn't exactly a pretty one, isn't it?
Oh,
And these are
love this
not people who
timeline.
committed crimes, by the way. 30,000 people is an absurdly high number of
Yeah,
people who,
it's
even
just
if you want to say
random
that they're all
people.
violent, they're not. These are people who are our neighbors, of part of the community, are nurses and what have you, who work, who have been in agriculture, who are
Right.
just
These are
here and
just
happen to not be documented. And now they're being subject to some of the same conditions that terrorists were under during the War of Terror, the War on Terror.
yeah.
The same cells, the same
We'll
location.
see what the Supreme Court has to say about it, but they didn't have much to say about the last people that were there, so
Yeah.
there's that. I'm going to read this from AOC. We're going to follow that to see how it develops, but that is a big concern because it's small programs turn bigger. Ask Hitler.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, AOC. So there was a tweet where Kyle Cheney said Judge McConnell will grant the restraining order, saying the withdrawal of the hugely ambiguous OMB order to give only a distinction, yada, yada, yada. AOC responded, in case you're having a bad day at work, remember that at least you're not Trump's press secretary whose tweets were so bad today she earned the entire administration a federal restraining order. Keep talking and tweeting, girl. You're doing great. Oh, I got a good laugh out of that. It's a pretty good
There was
one.
something I saw on her today. There was a reporter, Natalie Winters, who wrote War Room White House correspondent and misspelled correspondent. This is who's replacing DEI, folks.
I know, this is who's replacing the Biden DEI hire. Literally fucking anybody off the street. That's fucking crazy. We don't
Yeah.
want unqualified people off the street, but also that person will work.
You got to
In
think outside the
Colombia, they
box.
spelled. They don't even like
Columbia.
do a simple spell check.
And that's
Crazy,
that's not
crazy,
to say
crazy.
anything of Donald Trump's caps locks, fucking unhinged,
I
insane,
know.
messed up
Have you ever
fucking
seen like
misspellings all the time.
he
Hamburgers. He'll
I don't know why
capitalize
he
random
does
shit.
this. He does. He capitalizes random shit. It's the weirdest
Country.
thing. And I don't know why. It's just some random thing. Because I've figured it out that that's what he thinks important. Right? And
Right.
then when he's angry, he puts that shit in all caps. Like, I want
Hmm.
this. What, bro, why are you yelling? Turn that down. Uh,
We see
well,
you.
I like how loud you are. Like, bro, calm down, right? And but yeah, he does. He does like random cap locks and just like, oh god. If someone was standing on a corner on a soapbox yelling that at you, you would absolutely uh, pretend not to notice them.
Hmm.
You would absolutely. I wouldn't do. I wouldn't. That'd actually be a funny bit to just go to like downtown Seattle and yell it.
Just yell his tweets.
Just yell his
Creepy
tweets.
deranged Jack Smith and the radical left communist Democrats.
It's actually a
Hey,
great
hey, calm
idea.
down, fella.
I should get Walter
Hey.
Masterson to do that. That would be so funny.
Is he okay?
I know. Is he? Are you good, my guy?
Just calm down.
And I don't know if it was your final story, the meta one, because if not, that's probably pretty important.
My final story was Menendez was sentenced to 11 years in prison
Right.
for taking bribes of cash and gold from and acting as an agent from the country of Egypt.
Yeah. And nobody on the, you notice how nobody on the left is saying, "Oh, it's rigged."
Mm-hmm.
Nobody.
Funnily
Like
enough, the one who
they're trying
is
to.
Menendez. He made a statement
It's
today. He said Trump was right. It's a rigged system. I hope he fights this. I think he's angling for a pardon. This is all true, by
yeah,
the
and
way.
yeah, and then Eric Adams is trying to get his federal
Mm-hmm.
charges dropped. And it's funny to me that like they're trying to clear the swamp. It's the corrupt Democrats, and then Trump
I
lets them
know.
go, and they're
And they're the ones
quiet.
clinging to Trump.
Yeah, and they're just like they let him go, and they're like, oh, they're just quiet. Like, When
Right.
Democrats go to prison, Trump is one of them. Like he's one of that elite, that group of people. Like he's not draining the swamp. I don't know what they're on about. Is this breaking?
What happened?
Looks like ground stop in effect at Reagan National Airport after small aircraft crashes into Potomac River. Well, that's not good. Also, an F. Do you see the F thirty
Mm.
five that went down today?
No, no, I didn't.
Yeah, $100+ million just dropped out of the sky. The pilot was okay. Our plane was not, and that's most of the story. It did a pretty crazy spiral. You check out the video if you can. I don't know. Whenever these stories break, I'm like, I don't know what to say about them. A plane fell out
Mm.
of the sky. Well, get used to it, America, because Trump's going to defund everything. So it won't be the last during his administration. The last story was Meta gave 25 million to the presidential library, which I have a funny thought. Like Donald Trump having a presidential library is like Zoolander having a school for kids that can't read good. I mean, what are they going to put in there? Picture books? You know what I mean?
Well, it's gonna be his tweets.
I know.
It's gonna be his writings. Yeah.
Is that not wild? Can you imagine, like, 100 years from now, someone opens that bitch up to see about Trump? It's like, what the fuck? They voted
It's like
for
a
this guy?
madhouse in here.
I know,
See,
right?
these
Could you
aren't
imagine if,
Halloween
like,
decorations. Like, what the fuck?
could you imagine if Andrew Jackson had a Twitter? Oh my god, it would be crazy. Those loser English, they just invaded. If they invaded, we're heading down there right
Get him
now to
all
go
out of
fight
here.
them. He wasn't president when
Nobody
that happened,
knows where
but
these Indians
Andrew
came from, but we gotta
Jackson
get them out.
Andrew Jackson gained prominence because he actually beat the English in a battle after the war had technically ended. And he didn't know because he was on a steamroll down to New Orleans. Anyways, but I think it was New Orleans. But yeah, but can you imagine, like, just. So, anyways, they're building a library for Donald Trump, which is a little bit like, I don't know, what would that even be like? Something completely opposite. I have a good joke here. There
Well,
has to be one. Donald
it's
Trump
gonna include
having a presidential
hamburgers.
library is like
Yeah.
Ted Bundy having a hospital. You know? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I feel like I
it
could do
works. Yeah.
better. Yeah, it
Yeah.
works. I feel like I could do better. Ah, we'll save that for tomorrow.